Είναι το πρωί στην Ελλάδα.
Gya Su, my name is Alice, I'm from the Netherlands, and this is me after 4 months of learning Greek. I was in Athens for work, visiting a university with a Greek colleague.
Είναι 7 η ώρα το πρωί. Είμαι πολύ κουρασμένη γιατί στην Ολλανδία είναι 6 η ώρα.
Up until that point, Greek had only existed in my room or in a classroom, in my books, in headphones, in carefully controlled situations where I could pause and think about what to say. But this was the real thing.
Ανθρώπους που εργάζονται, ανθρώπους που συνεχώς θέλουν να ενισχύσουν το βιογραφικό τους και βλέποντας αυτή την εργατικότητα.
It wasn't easy to understand. I remember going outside on my lunch break to practice words.
Πανεπιστήμιο.
Everyone around me was speaking so fast, so naturally, and I couldn't help feeling such frustration that I couldn't keep up with their level. But at the same time, I was also so determined to practice my speaking.
Μιλάμε ελληνικά.
Μιλάμε ελληνικά, ναι.
Είμαστε στο αυτοκίνητο και πάμε στο πανεπιστήμιο.
Correct.
Πανεπιστήμιο.
As you can imagine, at the end of the day, I was exhausted.
Ήμασταν στο πανεπιστήμιο όλη μέρα σήμερα και είμαι πολύ κουρασμένη.
I was so happy to have an emotional support Greek cat that doesn't talk. It may look like I'm talking easily here now, but remember, I repeated the word panepistimio 500 times before I remembered it at the end of this day.
In literally every single language, the word is university, universiteit, universiteit, universidad, and in Greek, it's panepistimio. Panepistimio. Like, why?
So that's how it all started. And looking back on these videos, I'm proud of that girl. Proud of her for speaking Greek with the little vocabulary she had at that point. For trying again when she made a mistake. For not giving up when things got hard. For having an open mind and for making an effort to understand the people and learn about the culture. Within a year, I was able to have a full conversation in Greek. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it.
Και τώρα έχουν περάσει 3 χρόνια από εκείνες τις μέρες στην Αθήνα. Και αυτά τα βίντεο είχα κάνει αρχικά για μια Ελληνίδα φίλη μου. Δεν σκόπευα ποτέ να τα αναβάσω στο YouTube. Αλλά μετά σκέφτηκα, ίσως είναι καλό να τα δεις. Να δεις την πρόοδο που έκανα. Να δεις ότι κι εγώ μιλούσα πιο αργά. Ότι σκεφτόμουν περισσότερο πριν μιλήσω. Ότι έψαχνα τις λέξεις μου. Και αυτό δεν σημαίνει ότι τώρα μιλάω τέλεια και δεν κάνω ποτέ λάθη. Όχι. Είναι ακόμα μια ξένη γλώσσα. Αλλά οι Έλληνες με καταλαβαίνουν. Εγώ καταλαβαίνω σχεδόν τα πάντα και νομίζω ότι αυτό είναι αρκετό. Είναι αρκετό για μένα. Οπότε θα κάνω το υπόλοιπο βίντεο στα αγγλικά γιατί έτσι είναι πιο εύκολο αν μαθαίνεις ελληνικά και εσύ και θέλεις να το ξέρεις πώς το έκανα. This is actually the most important tip that I always tell beginners especially, is to focus on the most important words, the most frequently used words in a language. For example, the verbs to be, to have, to want, to go, to need, to buy. I can literally not go a day without using any of these verbs. You need them in everyday sentences, and therefore it makes a lot of sense to learn them when you are a beginner, rather than very specific words that are often taught more in books or in apps like Duolingo. Not saying that that's a bad thing, it's just that these words are only useful when you are more advanced and you are able to describe something better. Because often in books and in Duolingo, they focus on learning categories like clothing items, animals, colors. But when you are in A1 level, then you don't need the colors because you only use them when you are describing something. But you don't have the level yet to describe something, so it doesn't make much sense to learn the colors when you are a very, very beginner. It makes a lot more sense if you can say phrases like, I am going to work. I want to go to the supermarket to buy food. Are you hungry? Where do you want to go? These things make a lot more sense to focus on from the beginning, and then later on you can learn the most specific words. So in case you are interested in that, I made a whole list of core vocabulary in Greek. I made a PDF that you can download below. I will put a link below. These are the words that I started with and that I really recommend you to learn first before you're moving on to anything more advanced. Because when you know these words, you can actually already have conversations. Because let me show you a clip of how I do this, how I did this, and how I implemented the most frequently used words and phrases in a conversation that I had with my colleague when I was in Athens.
Είναι Κυριακή, είμαστε στο αυτοκίνητο και δεν πρέπει να δουλέψουμε σήμερα.
Ισχύει.
Θα πάμε στη θάλασσα.
Στη θάλασσα.
Στη θάλασσα.
You see, I'm actually talking in very simple sentences. And he goes on explaining something in also very basic Greek. And if you see in the video, I can understand exactly what he's saying because he's speaking in like most frequently used words that I had learned by that time.
Θα πάμε στο Σούνιο σήμερα, θα δει το ναό του Ποσειδώνα και μετά θα πάμε στη θάλασσα, ίσως πιούμε ένα καφέ εκεί. Θα πάμε να φάμε ελληνικό φαγητό, το οποίο της αρέσει πολύ. Και μετά θα δούμε. Μπορεί να πάμε και στην Ακρόπολη, αν έχουμε χρόνο.
Θα πάμε στο κέντρο.
Κέντρο.
Ναι. Στην Αθήνα.
One of the hardest things when you are learning a language by yourself is knowing what to do next. I learned mainly by myself. I had a teacher, but we only spoke once a week for 1 hour while we did a speaking lesson, so I could practice my speaking. But apart from that, I mainly studied Greek by myself. And I remember I was in this phase where I learned the alphabet, I learned the most frequently used words, and then I was thinking, what do I do now? How do I learn to glue them together to make sentences? How do I know if I should learn how to conjugate them next, if I should learn the past tense first, if I should learn the future tense first, if it actually matters? Like, it does matter. There is a certain order in which you need to learn a language that makes it easier. But I had no clue about that. Like, how do I get this structure? How do I get this guideline? So at some point I got a book, and that helped me tremendously in making progress and knowing chapter by chapter what I should focus on next. And I also discussed this with my teacher. So that's a tip that I always give people, is make sure that you have some kind of guideline, because it is so important in order to not get lost in learning a language. And that's exactly the reason why I also created an entire course around this topic, how to learn Greek, where I give you a structure, where I give you a step-by-step plan. It's basically a roadmap that tells you, okay, you are now in level A1, this is what you should focus on. I created an entire PDF that's also inside the course that tells you step-by-step, this is what you should focus on. After that, you need to learn this. So you have a structure. So you know how to start learning Greek, because that is so important to have that. One mistake I see people learning a language often make is that they don't speak. They wait to speak a foreign language until they feel ready, or when they feel like, okay, now I have a lot of vocabulary. Now I know exactly how to express myself. Well, I can tell you that feeling of now I'm ready is never gonna come. Like, you're gonna have at some point find the courage to speak, and to speak even with the little words that you already have, like the little tiny words and phrases that you can say to people, make sure that you say them and that you can practice them. And it doesn't matter if you catch yourself repeating the same words and phrases over and over again, because obviously that's also what I did and how I learned a language. But it is so important that you just speak, because that's something that I want to show you also with these little clips that I share, is that you see me speaking and that you can see me trying and interacting and asking, how do you say this? What's the word for that in Greek? Repeating it over and over again, because that's eventually the way to learn a language, is by speaking it and by trying it out.
Είμαστε στο λιμάνι.
Σου άρεσε?
Σου αρέσει, μου αρέσει.
Πολύ.
Πολύ. Μου αρέσει το λιμάνι. How do you say windy in Greek? It's very windy.
Έχει αέρα.
Έχει αέρα.
Φυσάει.
Φυσάει, it's windy.
Yeah.
Έχει αέρα, φυσάει.
Either έχει αέρα or φυσάει.
Okay.
Don't learn the grammar right from the beginning. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, and so many teachers also start explaining you the grammar. All the books start with explaining you the grammar. But the way that works, at least for me, is I get so terrified by it. It's a book teaches me to introduce myself, and I'm like, okay, my name is Alice. I am from the Netherlands. But then I am from, in Greek, the article changes into the accusative case. And then the books start explaining like why this happens and how an article changes from nominative to accusative case. And from that moment is you only start worrying about whether it's I, O, to, tin, or like sto, sti. Like that's gonna be in your mind the whole time. Like which gender does a word have and how does it change in what form? And it just completely ruins you, basically. So my tip is just leave it. Do not spend so much time on that in the beginning. I rather want you to focus on words that actually matter, like words that are important, and speak regardless of the grammar, because the thing is, people are going to understand you anyway. And that is something that you saw in the previous videos too. I'm literally asking my colleague, like, sti, sto, sta, thalassa, sto, sti, panepistimio? No idea, but just speak whether or not it's correct or not, because he didn't even care. You can actually see it in the video. It was only when I asked for reassurance, like, it's sti thalassa, right? That he's like, yeah, it's sti thalassa. If I hadn't have asked him that, he wouldn't have cared. Greeks don't care.
Πάμε να φάμε μουσακά, λαχανοφαλμάδες, ναι, ντολμάδες, λαχανοδολμάδες και τσατσίκι και ψωμί. Είναι ωραίο. Καλή όρεξη.
Καλή όρεξη.
There are 4 skills you need to learn a foreign language: speaking, writing, listening, and reading. And out of all these 4 skills, the most important one is listening. You have to make sure that you completely surround yourself with the Greek language. And that's another mistake I see many people make, is that they start looking for content that they actually understand and they avoid listening to Greek, because they're thinking, if I'm listening to a Greek conversation and I don't understand a single word that's being said, then I'm not going to learn anything from it. But that's actually not true, because what I always do when I learn a language is I completely immerse myself in that language. I start looking for podcasts, I start looking for online resources, I watch YouTube videos, and I watch them whether or not I speak the language or I understand it or not, because you're learning from that. There are plenty of situations where I could kind of understand something by the context, or I would pick up one word, and because I only understood like one word, I could kind of like guess the meaning of the entire sentence. And if you do that more often, then at some point you just get what people are talking about. And when you think about it, that's also how children learn languages. children don't read or they don't write or they don't speak yet, what they do first is listening. They just listen to their parents speak the language, and at some point they just magically absorb it. And that can also happen when you are an adult. It just takes a little longer than it does for children. But out of all the 4 skills, I really recommend you to listen. Listen to Greek. Even if you don't understand anything that's being said, listen to it anyway, because that's going to help you so much to make progress. This is the last tip that I want to give you, because it's also a misconception that so many people have, is people just assume that in order to be fluent in a language, you have to invest like hours and hours and hours, and you have to spend the entire day just learning that language and immersing yourself in it. That's actually not realistic, and that's really not how I did it. I worked a full-time job alongside learning Greek. I had a life, I did things besides like working a job and learning Greek. So the key is actually to just make goals that are so incredibly small that it's just easy for you to accomplish them. Goals that you can just easily plan into your week, that you spend every day just a little bit investing in Greek. And it could be in like simple moments. When you are on the car on your way to work, you can listen to a podcast episode. If you go take your dog out on a walk, or you go on a walk by yourself, you can listen to Greek. There are these little tiny moments that you can create that can actually help you get involved in the Greek language and have it in your daily life without actually like sitting down and actively studying it and doing it for hours. Because that is certainly not something that worked for me. The way I did it is I would make myself goals so incredibly small that I could just easily achieve them, and I would plan them into my calendar. And that is also something I show you in my course, How to Learn Greek. If you want to have ideas on, okay, then what kind of goals do I need to set for myself? If you want to have some examples or some methods that I use, I made a whole document and I show you this exactly how I would plan that into my day and how I learn Greek even while working a full-time job. Because let's be honest, we all have a life besides learning a language. It's not like we're students anymore, or maybe you are, but most of us don't have the time to like learn Greek for an entire day, or have like 8 hours per day that you can just dedicate into learning Greek. Like that would be absolutely wonderful if you have that, but let's be realistic, not many of us have that time. But there are ways that you can be fluent in a language, that you can become fluent, and you don't have to study for hours every day. So these were all the tips that I wanted to give in this video. I noticed there are so many more tips that I can tell about this, but then it's gonna be like a 6-hour long video. Or in case you want to hear more about me, you can also join my online course where I give more tips and I explain everything more in depth. But I just wanted to make like a shorter version that you could watch that already packs a lot of tips. So I really hope that you found this useful. And there's really not an excuse not to learn Greek anymore, or that you cannot learn Greek, because there are so many resources out there. You just have to find them and make time to look for them. And I made a whole list of resources. I will pack all my tips and recommendations and links like below this video in the description box in case you are interested to check them out. But there are also so many free resources. There are YouTube videos, there are podcasts. I made a podcast with my Greek teacher that you can also listen to for free. It's called Unlocking Greek Potential, where we also take you through the entire language, where we also focus on the most important words. So definitely check that out too if you are in a beginner level, because it's really made for beginners. If you like the little progress videos of me and you want to see more about me speaking Greek in different phases, there are 2 interviews that I did that you can also find YouTube videos on. One was after 9 months of learning Greek, and the other one was after 1 year of learning Greek. So I will link them below in case you want to see how I spoke at that point. Then you can also watch them. And I think that's it. have fun learning Greek, because honestly, it shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something that you dread doing, because Greeks are honestly the most amazing people to practice a language with, because they love you. They love you from the start. They love it when you say one word in their language, let alone an entire sentence. It's like you immediately become their best friend. They introduce you to their entire family. They like adopt you from the second that you say one sentence. And it's just, for me, it's such a magical experience to see that and to connect with them on a way deeper level. And it just made my life so rich and so incredibly amazing, because I got to experience that. And I felt so grateful, even though I was frustrated at times, even though I thought I'm never gonna learn it, even when I made mistakes and when I said embarrassing things. It's like the moments that I had with people where I felt so intensely grateful that I could say something were worth everything. And I wish nothing more for you to have that same experience and to allow Greek to change your life the way that it changed mine. Οπότε, σε ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ που είδες το βίντεο μου. Πιστεύω σε σένα. Μπορείς να το κάνεις. Φιλάκια.